Hello and welcome to our next video in our series about trigonometry. Today we're going to be talking about finding angles using trig. So before we do any of that, let's review a few things. Remember our acronym. To help us remember our sine, cosine, and tangent ratios. So standing for sine, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse. C is standing for cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Let's in fact review a problem that we did in our last video series to kind of see how these two problems relate. So we have an angle. Let's say this angle measures 40 degrees. I want to know this side, and this side measures 10. So I would try to figure out first what kind of trig ratio I have. So x is the opposite side of 40, and 10 is the hypotenuse of the entire triangle. The trig function that deals with opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So I would say the sine of 40 has to equal x over 10. And then to solve this, I would multiply to get rid of the fraction. And then it comes the time when I would put this into my calculator. If you don't have your calculator, pause the video and go get one, because you're going to need one again for today. So if you pull up your calculator, again, make sure you're in degree mode. So you hit your mode button. If you notice, I'm already in degree mode, so we're good there. So I'm going to type in 10 times the sine of 40. And I get 6.427, so 6.43. And this would be 6.43 like feet or miles, whatever is associated with this particular triangle. Now let's say that my problem is a little bit different. We still are going to have right triangles. For your purposes, you are only going to use right triangles with trigonometry. And let's say that this time my x is my angle. And let's say that we have this side is 7 and this side is 12. So the process starts out very similar. You have to figure out a trig function, sine, cosine, or tangent. And I kind of did this intentionally. This is the opposite side of x. This is the hypotenuse of the whole triangle. So we are again dealing with a sine function. Sine, and I don't know the angle this time. Before I put 40. So here it's just the sine of x, because that's what I don't know. I don't know the angle. Equals 7 over 12. Now, to isolate your x, you have to do the opposite operation of sine. No, you cannot just divide by sine. That's not a thing. Not a thing. Don't do that. Okay, if you try to put it in your calculator is going to be very upset with you. So it's actually to do the opposite of sine. You have to do the inverse of sine. So it's actually a symbol on your calculator. It's not sine to the -1 power, it's just the inverse of sine. That's how we say it. So go to your calculator, and if you look on your calculator, at your sine button, just above it, probably in a different color, you're going to see sine to the -1. So if you hit second sine, it brings up the same thing that I wrote right over here, sine to the -1. So that's second sine. and then 7 divided by 12. And then you hit enter. And this tells you 35.69. Oops. This is 35.69 degrees. This is what that angle X measures. So whenever you're finding an angle, you're always going to end up doing the inverse, sine, cosine, or tangent. When you're finding a sine, you use normal, sine, cosine, or tangent. So let's do one more example together. Let's draw a right triangle. Let's say that we're trying to find this angle, and we'll call this angle theta. This is a very popular Greek letter that we use to represent angles. And we'll say this side is 7 and this side is 20. And I want to figure out what the measure of theta is. It doesn't matter what letter I put here. This is what I'm trying to find. So first, figure out your ratio before you do anything. 7 is the opposite side. The hypotenuse is over here because I kind of drew this triangle in a weird direction. And then your adjacent side is the 20. So you don't have any numbers on the hypotenuse, so we're not using that. So you want a trig function that deals with opposite and adjacent, so that's tangent. So you're going to say the tangent of theta, that's what we don't know, that's our variable, equals 7 over 20. And then you have to do the opposite operation of tangent. The opposite operation of tangent is just the inverse tangent. Or tan to the negative 1, as your calculator puts it. So if you put this in your calculator, you hit your second button, and then tangent this time, you have tangent to the negative 1, that's going to tell you an angle, is 7 divided by 20. Close your parentheses, you enter, and you get 19.29. So your angle here, your angle theta, measures 19.29 degrees. So again, the key thing here is whenever you want to find an angle, you have to do the inverse of your trig function. Please let me know if you have any questions. And as always, make good choices.